Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into some really fascinating material you sent over about an event that's almost hard to grasp, the Day of Arafat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just picture this. You've got over 4 million people. They gather for only about 8 hours every single year,
Yeah,
and they do it in this huge, empty, barren place where nobody actually lives permanently.
right. That's the core paradox, the sort of mind-bending thing the sources highlight straight away.
It really is. It sounds like a logistical, well, a spiritual marvel, really.
Definitely unlike most things we usually talk about or see.
Absolutely. So, okay, our mission for this deep dive, using your sources, is to try and unpack this. We want to figure out, what exactly is the Day of Arafat? Why is it so important in Islam?
Wow.
How does this massive temporary gathering even work? And crucially, why do so many people in the sources call it a miracle?
Yeah, that word comes up a lot. We'll look at it based on what the sources say. This unique mix of, like, human organization, deep faith, and how belief can just temporarily transform a whole landscape.
Okay, great. Let's start with the basics then. According to the sources you shared, what is the Day of Arafat in simple terms?
Well, the sources identify it very specifically. It's the ninth day of the Islamic month, Dhul Hijjah.
Right.
And in the context of the Hajj pilgrimage, that big annual journey to Mecca this day is described again and again as the pinnacle.
The pinnacle, so like the absolute high point.
Exactly. The heart and soul of the entire Hajj experience. Even though Hajj lasts several days, this is the day.
Okay. And the location.
It takes place on the plains of Arafat, which are near Mecca.
And what are people actually doing there?
The main thing, the essential act, is that millions of people stand together. They pray, they supplicate, they reflect, and this happens within a specific time frame from just afternoon until sunset, so roughly 8 hours.
8 hours, and the sources say this is essential.
Critically essential. They emphasize that being present, physically standing on that plane during that specific time window, is required for your Hajj to even be considered valid.
Wow, okay. So, very specific place, very specific time, and absolutely non-negotiable for the ritual. Let's talk more about the phenomenon itself then, because the scale and the setting seem central to how your sources describe it.
Okay.
4 million people. Is that number solid?
The sources consistently mention over 4 million, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Muslim men and women converging on this one area.
And the place, Arafat itself,
Hmm.
the sources seem to really emphasize what it isn't most of the time.
That's a really good point. They make it clear it's usually a vast, open, barren plain. No permanent residents live there, no houses, no buildings like you'd normally see, no real tourism infrastructure.
Right.
And significantly, they mentioned there's generally no internet access right there in the main gathering area. For almost the entire year, it's just empty land.
But then for these 8 hours, it transforms.
Completely. It undergoes this really dramatic temporary change. The sources use some pretty powerful language, calling it a sea of faith or a vibrant hub of worship.
A sea of faith.
It essentially becomes a temporary city, fully functional, but just for this single purpose, for this one day. And it's populated by pilgrims who have come from, as the sources say, all corners of the globe.
That contrast is just stark, isn't it? A desolate place suddenly teeming with millions. So what's the experience like for those pilgrims? You mentioned unity. How do the sources say that's achieved?
Well, a key thing highlighted is the clothing, the ihram.
Ah, yes, the simple white garments for men.
Exactly. Just two simple, unstitched pieces of white cloth for men. Women wear modest, simple clothing too, often white as well, but covering according to their customs.
And the sources explain the meaning behind this.
Oh, definitely. It's packed with symbolism. They explain it represents purity, but maybe most importantly, it represents this radical equality. Think about it when everyone, no matter if they're a king or a street sweeper back home, is dressed essentially identically.
All those differences just vanish, visually at least.
Precisely. Wealth, social status, nationality, all those worldly markers are intentionally erased in that moment, in that space.
So they're united by this shared, simple appearance.
Exactly. Millions standing together, stripped of those external signs, all focused on praying to one Allah, as the sources state. This shared appearance, this shared action, fosters an incredibly powerful sense of collective identity and purpose.
Makes sense.
And the sources also really emphasize the role of the Talbiyah chant.
Right, you hear that in recordings, labbaik, Allahumma labbaik. What's the core meaning there?
It essentially translates to, "Here I am, O Allah, here I am," or "At your service, O God, at your service." It's a declaration of presence, readiness, submission.
And hearing millions chanting that together, Must be intense.
The sources describe it as creating this incredibly powerful, almost electric spiritual atmosphere. That rhythmic sound, everyone saying the same words, it reinforces their shared intention, it amplifies the feeling of devotion, and really binds those millions together in this shared, profound spiritual moment. It's more than just noise. It's described as a unifying force.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That sense of immersion must be overwhelming. And this whole event, it isn't something new, right? The sources touch on its history.
No, not at all. It has deep historical roots. The tradition, as presented in the sources, traces the establishment of this specific Arafat, gathering back to Prophet Muhammad himself, specifically during his farewell pilgrimage.
So it commemorates something from that time.
Yes, it's seen as commemorating the farewell sermon he delivered on that very day from a small hill within the plains of Arafat called Mount Arafat, or Jabal al-Rahma. And the fact that millions continue this practice year after year, centuries later. The sources present this as powerful proof, a testament to the enduring strength and success of his spiritual legacy and message.
It makes that history feel very immediate, very alive. Okay, let's circle back to that word. Miracle. Your sources use it explicitly to describe Arafat. Why? What aspects make them frame it that way?
Well, the sources point to a combination of factors. First, there's that physical transformation we talked about, taking a barren, usually empty plain and turning it into this functioning temporary city of millions just for a day.
It's almost like the place itself responds to the event.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the sheer scale, just managing to get millions of people together peacefully, harmoniously in one place for this specific purpose.
That alone is incredible.
Right. Then add the visible unity, driven by the simple attire that erases outward differences. The sources highlight that equality in practice. And also the temporary nature of it all, it appears. Serves its purpose and then vanishes within hours.
Like a spiritual flash mob on a massive scale.
Kind of. And the sources also mention the lack of typical modern distractions like widespread internet access or commercial tourism right there in the core gathering area. This contributes to a sense of intense focus, a sacred atmosphere, which some interpret as evidence of divine orchestration.
Okay.
It highlights the power of collective faith to create this unique environment, as the sources describe it.
It's like the conditions themselves are seen as part of the phenomenon. And your sources apparently compare Arafat to other large gatherings to make a point about its uniqueness.
They do, yeah. They use comparisons to illustrate what makes Arafat stand out, according to their perspective. The main point they stress is that while other faiths or events certainly gather huge crowds, the sources claim no other event matches Arafat's specific combination of characteristics annually.
Okay, and remind us, what are those specific characteristics again?
It's the combination of millions of participants gathering every single year, wearing uniform attire symbolizing equality, the ihram for men especially, all converging on a desolate, temporary location that's usually uninhabited.
Got it. So millions, annual uniform dress, temporary barren location, and the comparisons highlight these differences.
Exactly. Their sources might mention, for example, Hinduism's Kumbh Mela. It draws absolutely massive crowds, millions upon millions, but the major Kumbh Mela happens only every 12 years.
Right, not annual.
Or they might mention Christian World Youth Day, which also gathers huge numbers of people, but again, it happens every few years in different cities, not annually in the same designated desolate spot with uniform attire.
Okay.
So the sources argue it's that specific package, the annual frequency, the scale, the radical simplicity, the unity, the temporary transformation of that specific kind of place that makes Arafat distinct in their view.
Yeah, when you lay it out like that, based on the source material, it does sound truly unique. So let's connect this back to you, our listener. Based on the sources you provided, why does this event resonate so deeply, particularly with Muslims around the world?
Well, the sources explain it really embodies core Islamic principles in a very visible, tangible way. Things like unity, ummah, absolute equality before God, and total devotion to one Allah. For those critical 8 hours, you have millions from every conceivable background intentionally standing shoulder to shoulder, having shed those external symbols of status and wealth.
It's like living the ideal, not just talking about it.
Exactly. It's described as putting those ideals into practice on a massive scale. The sources also frame it as a powerful living link back to Prophet Muhammad and his original message delivered right there.
A direct connection.
Yeah, and a moment of intense spiritual renewal, a chance to seek forgiveness, connect deeply with their faith, and feel part of this vast global community, all stripped down to the essentials in that unique setting. The sources portray the experience, especially because it's in that simple, unadorned place without distractions, as incredibly purifying and spiritually potent.
And just thinking more broadly for anyone listening, regardless of their own background, what aspects of this phenomenon, as described, might just be fascinating to consider?
Oh, I think several things. Just the sheer power of collective belief, how it can mobilize millions and literally temporarily transform a physical
That's
landscape.
huge.
Yeah, and the creation of this immense yet fleeting community.
Yeah.
People united by a single intense purpose for just a few hours. Also, the idea of a place being completely empty for, say, 364 days a year, and then becoming the absolute spiritual epicenter for the faith for that one day.
That transformation of place through presence and belief.
Exactly. I think it's just a really powerful illustration of how shared human focus, shared belief, can create something truly extraordinary, even if it only lasts a short time.
It really makes you think about human connection, faith, and scale, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So just to recap, we've really dug into how the sources describe the Day of Arafat, that incredible scale, the radical simplicity and unity symbolized by the ihram and fueled by the Talbiyah chant,
Mm-hmm.
the temporary, almost startling transformation of a barren place and its deep, deep spiritual roots and meaning within Islam.
A very short window of time, but just packed with layers of meaning, history, and frankly, logistical complexity that the sources hint at.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over, drawing from the ideas in these sources we've discussed. What does this Day of Arafat described as millions united, stripped bare of worldly status, gathered in this temporary, unadorned space? What might that tell us about the fundamental human search? For connection, for meaning, maybe for transcendence. And what does it suggest about the sheer, almost improbable power of shared belief to actually manifest such an incredible, visible, tangible phenomenon, even if only temporarily, right onto the physical landscape?
It's a powerful question to sit with.
Definitely something to ponder. We'll leave it there for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.